The Anchorage Municipality Platting Board meeting will now come to order. It is 6:30, December 6, 2017. May we have a roll call?
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Christina Enix.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Becky Lipson. Dan Young. Jenna Welton has been excused. Thank you.
Dan Young is here. And next, may I have a motion to approve the action summaries? Kevin Cross moves and Valerie Ritz seconds. Is there any opposition to approving the motion on the table? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Next, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 1st, 2017? Kevin Cross moves and Valerie Ritz seconds. Are there any amendments, changes, or additions that need to be made to the November minutes? Seeing none, is there any opposition to approving the minutes? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Next is the disclosures. Are there any disclosures for tonight's matters? Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, in the case of S12382, Southwest Anchorage School Site Subdivision Tracks 1 and 2, I have a disclosure. My firm has provided hydrological and environmental services on this property for more than 10 years. I have specialized knowledge of the surface and subsurface conditions. We're not working with the current owner, and we are not working with the property, but we have worked with the petitioner in the past and other projects in the past. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias, and my past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case.
May I have a motion directing Dan Young to participate in case S12382? Don Porter moves. Please state your motion.
Yes, through the chair, I move to direct Dan Young to case number, I apologize, which?
12382.
12382. He's stated that he has specialized knowledge, but that he has no financial interest and that he can act fairly in the case.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz seconds the motion. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Dan Young, you're directed to participate in case S12382. Are there any other disclosures? Seeing no one. We have some informational items. We have informational items from October 23rd, October 30th, November 13th, and November 27, 2017. And so with that, we will now take up new business. Case S12380. May I have a motion to postpone indefinitely case S12380? Kevin Cross moves. Mr. Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, regarding case S12380, as a petitioner has requested a indefinite extension. On the November 27th, a request of the petitioner's representative was received by the Platting Department to postpone this case indefinitely. It appears this postponement will allow the petitioner time to resolve concerns associated with the subdivision right-of-way design. I will be voting in favor.
Thank you. And Dan Young has seconded the motion. Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If we fail to complete our agenda for this meeting, the Board will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the next meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak at this meeting is, after the staff's presentation is completed on public hearings, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. People who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. The rules allow petitioners and their representatives 10 minutes. They are allowed to reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs are given 5 minutes. Individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, the Board may ask you some questions. You may only testify once on an issue unless the Board asks you additional questions. With that, we will take up case S12382, Southwest Anchorage School Site Subdivisions Tract 1 and 2. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a simple subdivision of 3 tracts of land into 2 tracts. The purpose of the plat is to separate out the ownership or management authority of the resulting parcels of land. Real Estate Services, the municipality Real Estate Services will have one of the tracts of land, and the Anchorage School District will have the other. Even though all the property is government owned, they have different management authority, the school district and the municipality. There is an existing split zoning on one of the tracts of land, and that will be addressed at a future rezoning. That is something that will need to occur, but is not taking place now. There's no development planned at this time. This is really a plat that is a housekeeping measure. The Planning Department is recommending approval of all of the vacation requests and the variance requests as well. The vacations are of a number of easements. The variance request is from having to make improvements. I have handed out this evening a revised page on the conditions of approval, so this would replace your page 7 and 8 in your packet. The reason why I handed out the revised department recommendation is I've added, the department has added A, which is underlined on that one-page sheet, and when the application was submitted, it sought to vacate a right-of-way easement, and through the department's review, we thought that there was another way to vacate the easement, but in speaking with the municipal surveyor, it was determined that the Platting Board is the proper authority for vacating the right-of-way easement. So they submitted it correctly. I discuss on page 2 of your packet, page 5 of your packet, that it doesn't need to be vacated through the Platting Board, but we're putting it back in. So if you followed that, please look at the revised department recommendation. So again, the department's recommending approval of the vacation of that right-of-way easement, all of the other easements, and the variance request. The department's recommending approval of the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 through 5, and they're all standard conditions of approval, except for plat note 5I. If you look at plat note I, single I, it says increased or concentrated stormwater runoff from tracts 1 and 2 may not go beyond the parcel limits unless approved by the municipal engineer. This note applies to any future subdivision of these tracts. This has to do with concerns about runoff from these parcels to Pauline's Pond, this other place on an adjoining property. So it's of concern to the municipality and of the neighbors, and so this plat note comes recommended from Watershed Management Services. With that, I've covered my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here to speak to their plat. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff at this time? May we have the petitioner's representative?
Good evening. Through the chair, my name is Tony Hoffman. I work with the Boutte Company, and with me tonight is Robin Ward with HLB and Tanya Hickok with the Boutte Company. We're representing the petitioner on this, which is HLB and the school district. I'm going to keep this real short. It is a tract plat we've been working on for a number of years. We had initially started this process about 10 years ago, and the variances were contentious at the time for the road construction. I think the city and the new administration and over time has come to understand that this is just the first step in a multiple process issue, that once we get this consolidation done, set aside the area for school district, for HLB, then the city can start school planning, and then they go to the bonding process. So this is just a first step, and we're not contemplating any construction, any improvements of any sort. That's what the variances are for. So that said, we agree to all the conditions that Francis has done. Staff has worked with us to hash out all these things, including that right-of-way easement issue that we finally came to understanding today. So with that said, I'll reserve my time and answer any questions.
Thank you. You have 8 minutes and 44 seconds for rebuttal. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Hoffman? Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Are you speaking on behalf of any groups or on behalf?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm the president of the Association of West Park,
Okay.
and also I live on West Park, and right across the street there on Kenai Fjord.
And your name
And
is?
Alan Thornhill,
Thank you, sir.
and, for now and the future, we're very concerned with the runoff because we have a substandard drainage system in the road. And we've been very concerned with that. And also with 80th going up, I don't know what they're going to do with Track 1. Is that going to just be part of the school district or not? And also the runoff of the street itself. If we do any more road construction, could we divert it somewhere else? That's my main concern.
Okay.
Any questions?
And is that, I guess that completes your testimony. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Thornhill? Christina Enix. Sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Hi. Hello.
Mr.
Mr.
Thornhill?
Thornhill?
We have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not really a question. I just wanted to bring to your attention one of the department recommendations. Condition number 5I, increased or concentrated stormwater runoff from tracks 1 and 2 may not go beyond the parcel limits unless approved by the municipal engineer. This note applies to any future subdivision of these tracts. So it's addressed as far as runoff from those properties leaving those properties. And I kind of wanted to bring that to your attention that it hasn't gone unnoticed with the municipality.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak this evening on this matter? May we have the petitioner's representative for rebuttal?
Through the chair, I believe Ms. Phoenix responded to the question real well. It is premature to really talk about any future conditions until we have development plans and we're looking at a real site plan. The city does review on-site drainage a lot differently now than they did when they built West Park and when we were constructing that. So it's going to be retention ponds, detention ponds, any number of different solutions. But that issue that Mr. Thornhill brings up is in their foremost thoughts. So,
thank you. Does that bring up any other?
That's all I have.
Okay. Does that bring up any other questions from the board? Thank you, sir. With that, we'll close the public hearing on this matter, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the vacation of the 50-foot right-of-way? Don Porter moves. Would you like to state your motion, Mr. Porter?
Yes, through the chair. I move that in case number S12382, South Anchorage School Site Subdivision Tracks 1 and 2, that we approve the vacation of the 50-foot right-of-way as noted in the documents.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is approval of the vacation of the 50-foot right-of-way easement, books 267, page 36, subject to recording a final plat within 24 months and any approved time extensions. Kevin Cross seconds that motion. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. The variance request, the approval of the vacation has met the staff analysis based on page 5, and they've considered the merits of vacating the right-of-way, and I believe those to be correct.
And are there any other findings anyone would like to offer? Kevin Cross.
Yes, I also seek to approve this motion. According to staff analysis on page 5, it says that the consolidation of the 3 parcel creates a need to vacate these these easements, and the easements are unnecessary and should be removed from the plat in order to prepare the property for future development.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other findings the board would like to offer? I'd like to also offer that the 4 standards that we're supposed to meet, as stated on pages 6 and 7, AMC 2103, 240G3, have been met. Currently, there's no public benefit from requiring the improvements to 80th Avenue and Lucy at this time, the streets being peripheral to the subdivision and already having adequate access. And it's premature to the development plan and would be an undue hardship. With that, is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May we have a motion to approve the vacation of the 10-foot telephone and electric easement? Don Porter. Would you like to state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12382, I move that we approve the vacation of the 10-foot telephone and electric easements and the 10-foot slope easements on Lot 1, subject to recording plat in 24 months and any approved time extensions.
Thank you. And Kevin Cross seconds your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, similarly as we've discussed in the previous approval, the variance request meets the conditions for approval based on the development plan as stated on 5 and 6 of the packet.
Thank you. And Kevin Cross seconds your motion. Kevin Cross, did you have additional findings you'd like in the record?
Yes, I will be moving to support this motion, specifically as they are addressed within Chugiak's letter dated on November 1st, 2017, where they had Chugiak has provided comments with enclosed pros plat reference per the following case numbers, and it was within their acceptance. Let this be removed.
Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair. I want to just state the findings that on page 5, these easements are unnecessary, and the staff recommends they should be removed from the plat in order to prepare the property for future development. None of the reviewing agencies nor any utility companies object to these vacations, and we find that the easements are not of value to the municipality, and I will support this motion.
Thank you. Any other findings? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve vacation of the 10-foot and 20-foot electric easements on Tract 8A? Don Porter. Would you like to state your motion?
Yes, I move in the case of S12382 that we approve the vacation of 10-foot and 20-foot telephone and electric easements located in Tract 8A, Plat 2006-87, subject to a final plat within 24 months and any approved time extensions.
Thank you. And Kevin Cross seconds your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
We may seem repetitive, but we found that these easements are in excess of the public need or the utilities need. So,
thank you. Is there any other findings that anyone wants to offer? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the request for variance from AMC 210850 for improvements? Don Porter, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, in the case of 12382 South Anchorage School Subdivision, I move to approve the request for variance from AMC 210850 improvements for the improvements of West 80th, subject to recording of a suitable plat within 24 months of approval or any approved time extensions.
Thank you. And your motion's been seconded by Kevin Cross. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. The granting of the specific variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious in the area of which the said property is situated. So you can go through the standards for approval of the variance and that have been satisfied, and the standards have been met on page 5 and 6.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Kevin Cross. Oh, did you want to add any additional findings?
I did. I just wanted to speak that I was also going to approve of this motion. I also wanted to note that it seemed that from public testimony there was concern regarding grade issues and what approval of this plat would mean. However, we're too far ahead for that have been determined. This is, as stated by petitioner, a housekeeping item, just making sure that they can merge their tracks for future use for a school. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. And we now have a motion to approve the plat for 24 months subject to conditions. Don Porter, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12382 South Anchorage High School subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the following conditions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5I, 5II, and 5III, Roman numerals.
And your motion's been seconded by Kevin Cross. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. We've heard testimony that drainage is a major consideration. The other conditions are also applicable as they've been stated by staff. The drainage, all three of the items under 5 actually go to drainage. They note that drainage cannot be increased off-site. They can't raise or lower or in any manner that will alter drainage patterns, and the property owners and utilities shall not obstruct, impede, or alter drainage facilities that would adversely impact adjacent properties or right-of-ways. So they have specifically noted the drainage concerns, and they are making sure that the drainage stays on site, as stated by the petitioner as well.
Thank you. Are there any other findings? Kevin Cross.
Yes, I will also be moving to approve this motion. Again, to reiterate what Dan stated here in regards to the heavily worded requirements in 2 and 5I, 5.3, and also, just to listen to Alan Thornhill's, I really appreciate it. Seems like a lot that we deal with is drainage issues, particularly years later, which is the next case that we're dealing with, which is resolving drainage issues from decades ago. And so your voice has been heard, and it's noted aggressively through this to resolve drainage issues. And thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I just want to point out there was one public comment in our packet on page 110, and the comment related to zoning, and I just wanted to address that we're not addressing zoning tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. We will now take up case S112, make that 12384 Pleasant Valley subdivision. Now we have staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Pleasant Valley Subdivision Road and Drainage Improvements Project was initiated by the Scenic Foothills Community Council to upgrade the roads in the project area to current municipal urban design standards. Strict application of Title 21 standards would be impractical for the road reconstruction project and undesirable to the subdivision. The project area has been fully developed for over 40 years. The existing rights-of-way do not allow for public improvements to be constructed to the current municipal standards without impacting the properties within that neighborhood. So the variances that are requested before you are to allow the municipality to improve the roads and drainage facilities while still allowing some upgrades to pedestrian amenities such as attached sidewalk and street lighting. The Platting Board is the decision-making authority to grant variances to the standards found in AMC 2107 and 2108. The table found on page 5 of the staff packet outlines the 3 requests before you for sidewalks, curb and gutter, and spillover parking. So this variance request is basically a variance from AMC 2107-060E2B, which is to construct sidewalk on both sides of a residential secondary street, and 2108-050G using vertical curb only, and AMC 2108.050E, which is to provide spillover parking in lieu of on-street parking required for the 24-foot wide optional street section. I'll run through the standards of the approval criteria for variances. Standard 1 has been met. The proposed improvements will correct the deficiencies within the road surface, drainage, and lack of pedestrian facilities while keeping the character of the neighborhood intact. The project aims to keep a balance of providing improvements that meet current municipal standards while maintaining the character of the neighborhood. Standard 2 has been met. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare. Standard 3 has been met. There are special circumstances that are affecting this neighborhood which warrant the variances. Physical constraints of right-of-way widths prevent PM&E from constructing to Title 21 standards. The 24 and 31-foot street sections with attached sidewalk are appropriate to the existing infrastructure while still moving in conformity with the code. Standard number 4 has been met. Strict application of the code would impact residents with acquisition of additional right-of-way, which would result in shorter and steeper driveways for residents and impact off-street parking capacity. So this whole subdivision has been fully developed for approximately 40 years. Approval of the variances will allow the road project to be constructed while still allowing some improving the standards which are required by Title 21. So the existing roadways that are included in the project are strip paved surfaces with widths that vary between 22 and 24 feet with gravel shoulders. The application has identified these roads to be in poor condition and have inadequate drainage infrastructure in place. The department has raised this matter with PM&E about the driveway frontages along the identified rights-of-way. However, this issue has not been raised in this variance request, nor there has been a determination of the existence of non-conforming rights for any properties. So before us here today, we have these 3 variances found on page 6 and 7. The department recommends approval of these variances, and there's a slight modification here. So on page 6A, it's the approval of the variance from 2108050G, which is curbs and gutters, to allow the construction of rolled curb and gutter in lieu of vertical curb and gutter subject to the following condition. Resolve with the municipal traffic engineer the need to construct vertical curb on one or both sides of the 31-foot street sections. And then we have B, which is approval of the variance from AMC 2108050E improvements, which is to allow spillover parking in lieu of on-street parking required for the 24-foot wide optional street section. And then you have C, which is on page 7 of the staff packet, which has the 2 conditions there, which I'll paraphrase, is resolved with the municipal traffic engineer for no parking signs, and resolved with the municipal traffic engineer design construction of curb extensions. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we have municipal engineering staff here as well as representative petitioner from PTS. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, does the board have any questions for staff? Thank you for your presentation. May we now have a petitioner's representative?
Hi, my name's Nicole Rehm, NICHOLEREHM. I'm with Professional and Technical Services, otherwise known as PTS. We are managing the design of the contract, and with me tonight is Greg Soule, who is the design engineer, and PTS project administrator Jenny Miner. We are prepared to answer any questions with respect to some of the conditions, all of the conditions that have been brought forth, but we absolutely have no objection. So I really don't have a formal presentation. I don't want to waste your time. We are prepared to accept all of the conditions that have been presented, so I'm here for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you, Ms. Rehm. Well, Kevin Cross has a question for you, Ms. Rehm.
Excellent. There's a note in here to deal with spillover parking, and now, flow-over parking. Is that just during the times of construction? This is where is that parking going to take place? Or is this for on the other side of once the project is completed?
You mean the code? What the code requires for spillover parking?
Yes. What is the code requiring for your spillover parking? I see that's one of the requirements that you're to resolve, and I guess I was a little unclear on what they were.
So I will try to speak to that. I might ask for staff's assistance. Essentially, in new residential subdivisions, if you are building a road that is 24 feet wide, which is less than the minimum required street width, where you cannot provide on-street parking, you have to provide spillover parking.
Yeah, and so since my plans are I'm very familiar with that neighborhood, and the parking is miserable, and so is the drainage. Most of those houses have 2 and 3 sump pumps in them. It's atrocious. So I'm happy to see this is happening because it's needed badly for a very long time. But there's not a whole lot of places I see for extra parking. I'm kind of curious. I don't see a design on here where that spillover parking's going to go. I'm just curious because it's pretty much very compact housing.
It is very compact housing. The way that they're parking now is adjacent to their existing driveways.
That's correct.
There's not a lot of opportunity for on-street parking. So if we were to get right-of-way, get extra width and provide on-street parking, there are so many driveways that it would be difficult for people to park on-street. So as a matter of fact, parking adjacent to their driveways in these multi-family dwellings is what they are doing and what they would prefer to do.
Are they looking at a consolidation of mailboxes? Because a lot of that is driven because so much of it is obstructing mail service that they can't. There's certain areas, even though they'd like to park there, they can't because they obstruct mail service. Do you know if that's part of a?
I don't believe so.
All right.
I really, if you look at the, I don't know if you guys were provided an aerial of the entire west side with driveways. Looking. I think you were. Actually, I don't see where you were. We do have, that's not a very good photo, on page 10 of your staff packet. It shows all of the driveways that are in the neighborhood. Actually, if Greg can grab for me the aerial that we have, 22 by 34, and he might even actually have some 11 by 17 we can hand out. I can show the opportunities for on-street parking are limited, and off-street parking within the neighborhood, since it's developed for spillover, really doesn't exist. And so we're just trying to fix the road and drainage situation and maintain the existing status quo for parking.
Oh, yep, I have that one.
Cluster parking was never brought up in our design.
The last thing, there was a public testimony that had to deal with this encroaching. They said their driveways are already at what they referred as too short, which is why people. So this expansion, this widening of this road, the sidewalk, will this shorten the driveways even more? Or are we operating within that envelope? If we shorten the driveways too much, it just drives more parking into the street where there's already a shortage.
We would like to balance pedestrian access with the ability to double park. Because they're doing that now. We actually have a parking study that probably didn't make it into your packet, but we have here. In order to balance the need for pedestrian safety with the number of vehicles that are parking in the neighborhood, which is why we're asking for the variance for one sidewalk. We feel it's very important and necessary to have at least one sidewalk. And so we are going to be, right now, the 22 to 24 foot section where it's centered, we'll make sure to adjust the new road, the proposed road, so that even though we're widening with back of curb, we're widening it with 4 foot for curb and 5 foot for sidewalk. We're going to center that to try to minimize impacts on both the north and the south side of the side streets, the east-west streets. So we are impacting them by about 3 feet, but it's a lot less than a 31-foot section with 2 sidewalks.
Yeah, and right now there's no sidewalks, and in fact it's just pools of water during the spring and fall, so you couldn't even walk on the side of the road if you wanted. So.
No, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Dave Whitfield.
Yes, through the chair to the board, I think it's important to point out that Pleasant Valley subdivision currently is dedicated. All the roads in the subdivision are currently dedicated to a 50-foot width, which is doesn't allow for a fully compliant municipal road, as Ms. Riemann pointed out. So we're in a bit of a tough situation. In order to obtain the additional right-of-way, we'd have to go to acquisition on every property in that subdivision, which is nearly impossible. So we're trying to make the best out of a bad situation. As Ms. Freeman pointed out, a fully compliant road would require sidewalks on both sides of the street with a vertical curb. Doesn't make sense considering what is out there right now, the number of driveways and the right-of-way width to do that. So I think the development team or PM&E has done a good job of trying to accommodate pedestrian traffic while at the same time considering what we have out there. So it's a tough situation to be in, but I think that they're trying to do their best to improve the situation out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair. Nicole, do you feel that you've achieved informed consent for the public? I mean, I note that you have a public community meeting here, and were they aware that you were requesting these variances and doing this balance, informed consent?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we actually came to the meeting with various visual aids to show the aerial of what they have out there now with 3 alternatives. The 31-foot section with 2 sidewalks, the 24-foot section with 1 sidewalk, and no sidewalk. A couple people would prefer no sidewalk, but municipal traffic department will not stand behind the lack of pedestrian safety. But most people were definitely okay with 1 sidewalk and did not want to see any farther pushback. So they really liked the narrow section. There wasn't really I guess both of these team members behind me were there, but there wasn't really any major opposition. I was actually quite surprised. And we had quite a few members of the public, as you have seen from the sign-in sheet, come to the meeting. I think everybody's just tired of living in a puddle on a strip paved road, and they're ready for some upgrades. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Seward.
Through the chair, question for staff or petitioner's representative, a clarification on page 2 of the packet. The lower paragraph, there's a concern from Municipal Traffic Division on the existing driveways that exceed the 2/5 frontage dimensions, and all the houses would be non-conforming on that from the age of it. How is that going to be approached in this matter? Because the note, they limit that this matter must be resolved by the Platting Board for the project to move forward. What I would want to see is we don't want 90 houses putting in non-conforming requests if we need to resolve it tonight.
Through the chair to Mr. Seward, the comment that came from traffic with regard to the driveways is quite honestly inappropriate. Planning staff doesn't agree with it. Those are civil matters to be resolved by the homeowners themselves, and not a burden that should be placed on PM&E as part of a road project. So I think that the comment is a little bit misplaced, which is why we're not recommending that be resolved as a result of this request. So yeah, I think that's a homeowner issue, not necessarily a road project issue. So
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this matter tonight? Anyone at all? Seeing no members of the public that want to speak on the matter, the public hearing is now closed, and you can now use your time for rebuttal. You have 9 minutes and 18 seconds. You're done? Okay. With that, the public hearing is now closed, and the matter now rests with the board. May we have a motion to approve the variance from 210850G regarding curbs and gutters? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, in regards to case S12384 Pleasant Valley subdivision, I move that we approve of the variance from 21.08.050G curbs and gutters to allow for the construction of a rolled curb and gutter in lieu of vertical curb and gutter, subject to the following condition 1.
I think everything but the conditions, that'll be a separate motion later.
Oh, thank you. All right,
Isn't
thank
it?
you.
No, you got a different copy? Oh, go ahead.
Did you not receive the amended form?
No.
Okay. Do your homework. Number 1, resolve with the municipal engineer traffic the need to construct vertical curb and gutter on one or both sides of the 31-foot street sections.
Okay. And your motion has been seconded by Don Porter. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will be obviously supporting my motion here. Again, the public testimony pretty much resolves around the need for necessary parking, and a lot of this will be resolved with the width of the street, allowing to make sure we don't have spillover from driveways. As the petitioner has stated, they're working closely with the neighborhood. I understand that this is a big challenge. I'm very familiar with this neighborhood, and it's needed this for a long time. It would be hard to go worse than the current design.
Thank you. Are there any other findings that the board would like to offer? Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair. On page 3, the item number 2, middle of the page, the department recommends that the curb extensions be designed and constructed if determined to be feasible upon recommendation of the traffic engineer at the Little Dipper, Northwind, and Willowa intersections with Skipper and Pussy Willow. Also under, near the bottom of the page, under AMC 21.08.050G, curbs and gutters, the traffic department has no objections for the use of rolled gutters. The traffic department does object to the use of rolled. Well, it looks like an inconsistency here. The traffic department does object to the use of rolled curbs and gutters for the 31-foot section proposed by the for the Skipper and Pussy Willow streets. However, that's going to be resolved in item 1 of A1.
Okay. Thank you. Did you have anything further? Good. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Are there any other findings that anyone wants to offer? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. We have a motion to approve the variance from AMC 2108-050E. Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, in regards to case S12384 Pleasant Valley subdivision, move to approve the variance from AMC 21.08.050E, improvements to allow spillover parking in lieu of on-street parking required for the 24-foot wide optional street section.
Thank you. And your motion's been seconded by Don Porter. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, we'll be moving to approve this. I understand that this is a unusual request to allow for spillover parking, but considering the design restrictions from poor engineering 40 years ago, this seems basically based on municipal reports to be a reasonable solution.
Thank you. And Don Porter, did you have some findings you'd like to offer?
Yes, I just wanted to point out through discussion with the design team that they've achieved informed consent upon the balance that they've struck between the need for parking and the need for driveways, the need for rolled curb versus vertical curb. And the neighborhood has been given the opportunity to weigh in on that decision.
Thank you. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I would like to point out for findings that on page 5, and 6, there are 4 criteria that have to be met for the variances, and these standards are met, and the special circumstances or conditions exist. The proposed improvements will correct the deficiencies with the road surface drainage and lack of pedestrian facilities while keeping the character of the neighborhood intact. Number 2, the granting of the special variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other properties, and this standard has been met. Number 3, this variance will not have the nullifying or an effect of nullifying the intent or purpose of the subdivision regulations, and that standard has been met. And number 4, undue hardship would result from strict compliance with specific provisions or requirements of the subdivision regulations, and that standard has been met. Strict application of the code would impact residents with acquisition of additional right-of-way, resulting in shorter and steeper driveways for residents and impacting the off-site street parking capacity. So I intend to support this motion.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Next, may we have a motion to approve the variance from AMC 2107-60E to B? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
In regards to case S12384 Pleasant Valley subdivision, I move to approve the variance from AMC 12.07.060E to B, transportation and connectivity allowing the construction of a sidewalk on one side of the residential secondary street for improvements within the Pleasant Valley subdivision, subject to the following conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. Don Porter has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
So I'll be moving to approve this. Many of the items stated in motions both 1 and 2 and now 3 parallel. Important to note that Section 1, resolve with the municipality traffic the need for parking restriction signs along the 21-foot streets to be signed as no parking or fire lane on both sides of the street rather than standard parking anytime. Again, in order for this to go through, they'll be working with the Muni quite a bit for parking and sidewalk, as well as we've already discussed through the petitioner that the requirement for 2 sidewalks would be burdensome. There's just not nearly enough space. It would encroach on driveways. We've seen that also in the statements through municipality. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other findings? Don Porter.
Yes, I would like to point out that the municipality has also valued public safety through the addition of at least one sidewalk. Given the constrained situation, there was obviously a consideration of not providing, and that was not acceptable. So,
thank you. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair. I would like to, I intend to support this motion, and I want to state for the findings the same ones that I found before for the last variance request. Items 1 through 4 on page number 6, 5 and 6 have been met.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the board that would like to speak on this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the planning division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 2130. Are there any other persons that wish to be heard before the Platting Board tonight? Seeing none, does anyone on the board have any reports they'd like to make? Well, then with that, we are now adjourned.